Albanian blood. Not a gang, need my hand like I'm John Alite. On my brand, Benjamins like I'm John Alite.
Hello, everybody. Another day to Johnny and Gene show. This is my host, Gene.
What's going on, everybody?
And we'd like to say just a quick tribute to George Floyd in his memory. And today we're going to speak to Andrew DiDonato, who was also involved in the Gambino family at the same period as I was. We're pretty good friends. And here's Andrew, the people that don't know him. How are you, Andrew?
I'm doing okay, John. How about yourself?
All right, pretty good, pretty good. So I know you did some interviews with the Reform Report with Michael and Hollish, and I heard what you had to say. I know obviously we know each other for a long time, so we had similar friends, similar experiences, and you've been in the life for a long time, or were in the life for a long time, and just tell people about how you started and where you came from.
Well, I was raised in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. My family moved to the Canarsie section about 12, 13 years old. As a matter of fact, I lived on Joseph Carrazzo's block when I moved there. I lived about 4 or 5 houses away from Jojo Carrazzo. And we were childhood friends, me and his son. And we had some mutual friends from the neighborhood. I was already, about 15 years old. I was doing burglaries. I was robbing hubcaps on cars. I was doing all sorts of stuff. And then what happened was the guys that I was hanging around with, they were a little bit older than me. They were already friends with Nicky, Jojo's uncle. And one day I get a phone call that Nicky wanted me to come around with those guys or whatever. They invited me up to the club in East New York. We used to have a club up on Eastern Parkway and Pacific Street.
Right by my house. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we did was they took me up there. I met Nicky, and he told me, he said, "Listen, kid," he goes, "these guys tell me what you're doing." He goes, "Pretty much everybody comes up here. They all have friends here. Just wanted to let you know you got a friend here too if you ever need it. If you ever need me for anything, I know you're out there doing some stuff and that, somebody might come and approach you or whatever. You could tell them to come and see me from here on in." Back then, credit cards.
Just tell for the people that don't know who Nicky is. Nicky Carrazzo became one of the acting bosses of the Gambino family. For the people that don't know, he was a legitimate gangster. He was a tough guy and obviously knows the street better than most. And he was around Fat Andy Ruggiano, who's Gene's uncle. And God, Andrew, I don't want me to cut you off.
No, that's fine. So I was around Nicky ever since then, since that period. And then my crime started to escalate. I started to do bigger and better things. And that's how I got ingratiated with the Gambino crime family. I started meeting guys that were friendly with Nicky. I started doing business with them. I was all access. I was involved in every aspect of organized crime you could think of back in the day, John. Did a lot of sports betting. I took action. I ran one of Nicky's horse betting rooms. We had satellite rooms back in the day, if you remember.
Right, sure, I remember.
So we had the satellite up on the roof. We used to show 7 or 8 tracks a day. Guys would come in. They bet sports with me. They bet horses with me. I would take numbers. We would do it all. I worked 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. It was a full-time job, but it was good. I learned the business.
I want to cut you off quick. When you were answering to Nicky Carrazzo directly, he put you on record with him. He basically told everybody you were with him, right? That's basically what it was.
100%.
So he's seen that you were a street dude, and he grabbed you up because he knew you were a real street guy, right? Because I'm sure Nicky wanted real street guys around him.
Well, he wanted guys around him that he knew that would act if they needed to. Listen, there was a lot of capable guys in Nicky's crew. Don't get me wrong. There was a ton of capable guys. But Nicky always knew when I was younger, when I was around him all of that time, he knew that if he needed me for something, he could ask me 1, 2, 3, it would happen. A lot of times, me and Mike would go and do strong arm work. I'm talking about Mike and Adi. We were childhood friends. We grew up both around Nicky. We would go do strong arm tactics. We would shake down all the drug dealers in the neighborhood. We would make them pay us weekly tax, whatever it may be. And Gene, say you were a guy dealing marijuana, and Johnny was a guy dealing marijuana, and I was shaking you down, and you told me you were out of product. I would go to John and make John supply you so that I can continue to shake down.
All right, of course.
We always kept the money flowing.
We were robbing drug dealers and selling it back to them, basically. It's the same thing.
Is Michael Yanati still away, isn't he, right, Andrew?
Yeah. I think Mike gets out about a year or two from now. He got convicted on Junior's case, on Junior
Right.
Gotti's case.
With the Sliwa thing.
With the Sweeler thing, yeah.
For the people that don't know who Michael is, and, you know, a lot of times you'll hear me knocking guys on here and talking about who's full of shit and who's not a real guy. Michael is one of the guys that is a real guy that was on the street. So, you know, when we're going through this stuff, I want people to understand, you know, most of these guys that we talk about, in my opinion, are frauds, fakes, not really street guys. And Michael definitely doesn't go in that category. You know, I do. He's a tough kid.
Guy. He was with his
He's
hands.
a legitimate street guy, without a doubt.
He was fearless, the kid. You know, I grew up around him. He was like an older brother to me growing up. He's about your age, John. He's about a year or two older than me.
Yeah, I remember Michael when we were young.
You know,
And Joey was on that case with him. D'Angelo, who was also a tough guy, whose father stayed with Sammy Gravano. So
Wasn't he? He's the one that shot him, wasn't he, Joe D'Angelo? Isn't that the one that shot him in the cab?
Joey D'Angelo, I believe, was the driver of the cab. From what I understand from the testimony, Michael was the shooter.
Oh, okay. All right.
You know,
yeah, I mean, these guys were legitimately tough kids. They weren't no bullshit about him. Joey's a rough guy, and he got screwed bad on his case with actually with Gotti going in and cooperating, because Joey would have had a sweet ass deal before that, and then Gotti went in behind his back, and Joey's got some hard feelings obviously from that. But these guys were legitimate guys that were around like yourself with Nicky.
yeah.
But when you first did, you started doing some other things, Andrew, and I believe you also got involved in a murder yourself. Is that accurate?
I went away back in 1988. I got pinched for an attempted murder charge. I shot somebody, and I wound up going to trial. I blew trial. I wound up getting a 5 to 15 year sentence.
Okay.
I was involved in a few shootings over the years. As a matter of fact, I was involved in a shooting with Jojo Carrazzo, the lawyer, and his brother Rocco. Back in the day, we were out somewhere. We went out for the night, and it was about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. We were coming back from the diner in Canarsie, and we were leaving the diner. We were driving away, and I was sitting in the front passenger seat, and it was Jojo Carrazzo Sr.'s car that we were driving. And I'm in the passenger seat. I'm starting to nod out, and they start getting into an altercation with this guy in traffic. The only 2 cars on the road. They start cutting each other off or whatever it may be. We get up to a red light, and they start screaming at me, Drew, you got to shoot him. You got to shoot him. So I turn around, and I look in the side view mirror, and there's a guy running up the side of the car with like a butcher knife. And what I did was I rolled down my window. I put 2 in his groin, and we drove away. And I remember the sun was just coming up. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning. There was people at the bus stop on the corner, I remember. And I remember when we turned, I threw a few shots in the air to scatter everybody away. They found out what hospital the guy was in. Jojo, the father, I think he sent Johnny Beano to the hospital to go and speak to the guy, and he did. He went to the hospital, spoke to the guy, said, listen, it looks like you're going to make it from the shooting. God bless. You know, hope for a speedy recovery. He says, but, you know, the funny thing about gunshot wounds, he says, you know, sometimes they take a turn for the worse. He says, you know what? He goes, but I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to give you a few dollars so you can go away with your family, and you can go and take a nice little vacation, and maybe you can forget about this.
I like Johnny Beano, by the way, that you said that. Johnny Beano did some time with me, and a lot of guys didn't really care for him. I actually happen to like the guy. I thought he wasn't a bad guy. You get a lot of guys that talk shit about him.
I like John. I thought John was a nice guy.
Yeah,
I used to fight like crazy.
Yeah.
Him and Vinny, always fighting. And at Bam's Auto Body, he'd be fighting. He hated Johnny Beano. He used to go at it.
I got to tell you, though, Johnny did time with me, and he did good time. And I had a couple of incidents, and he was loyal. He stood. So when guys talk against him, we had a problem, and we were in Fort Dix I had it in the day room over a TV, and about 7 guys went against me. Johnny stepped up. I can't say he didn't step up. And I've been through different prisons where I was fighting. Guys wouldn't step up. And so when I hear guys talking against Johnny, and I hear it a lot while I was in the life, while I'm out of the life, and I can tell you he did the right thing. So, you know, when people talking about that, about Johnny Beano, he does stand up for himself. Guys might have some things to talk about him on a negative. I don't know him in that way. And I know Johnny for a very long time, since we're very young.
You know, I've always had nothing but nice interactions with John. He was always a gentleman. He was always a nice guy. He carried himself well. You know, I used to joke around with him all the time when I seen him. I haven't seen him in such a long time. I know he's been away for a minute. You know, he's been away for a long time. But most guys who talk, John, you know, they talk because they got nothing better to do. You know, they just talk because they hear secondhand news from somebody who might have had a problem with you, and now they take it as reality. And that's
let me ask you a question, and Gene, we say this every week, and I'm going to ask everybody as they come on. How do you restrain yourself now that you change your life when you have guys with big mouths that just talk nonsense because they didn't live the life, number one. Number two, they know that you're probably not going to do anything at this point because you want a different type of life. How do you learn to restrain yourself, and what do you think of these guys?
Me, personally, I laugh because, you know, you could be the biggest tough guy you want on the internet. If you run into me, say it to me, and then we could deal with it then. Because 9 out of 10 guys would swallow those words before they said it to your face. You know it and I know it. But to say it on the internet or to say it in front of somebody to make themselves feel bigger than they are, then they could do it. But when the chips are there and they got to do it in your face, we both know that a lot of guys will shit the bed before they would do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the hardest point. And the reason why I'm talking about it is because every day we advocate to help kids that are on the street change their life. Don't use violence. Don't, you know, go down the path we did. And, you know, you got to give them advice they ask for. The same advice they're asking us to give them is, or Gene just came home. To take that advice is easy to give, but it's a work in progress every day, even with myself, because I lose my temper and I want to revert. I obviously don't revert, and I'm not going to revert, hopefully, but it's a day-by-day thing. I'm just curious how everybody gets through it, because you have those tough days when you really want to react when someone's talking.
You know what I think? I think that when somebody tries to prod you like that and they're trying to pull that side of you out, in reality, God forbid if you did act upon it,
You're gonna call the cops.
Yeah, they'd be the first ones to call 911.
I know that.
I usually say the same thing. I mean, if that happens, I guess I'm going to lose my life, or any guy in opposition, they're going to lose their life because they're going to go back to jail, and that person's probably going to get killed. And the idea is to understand that your life's worth more than your ego of hurting one of these guys. And I think that's the message to the younger guys.
It should be.
Hey, Andrew, I want to ask you something. You came up in the 80s, right? That was your era?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, coming up in the 80s.
Older than me. No, I think I got you by a couple of years, actually.
Yeah, I'm going to be 55 this year.
Yeah, I'm 57. I got you by a couple of years.
Coming up in the 80s, right? So my era in the Mafia, it's like a joke now. You know, guys getting straightened out. You got guys going in that literally never did nothing. Don't have one piece of work, nothing. In your time, like a guy like you should be straightened out. How come you never got that opportunity? What was the reason of your...
I'll be honest with you, because what happens is there's a lot of politics in organized crime, as you know. So what happens is if you're not kissing somebody's ass, if you're acting on your own, or you get involved in some unsavory business with a bunch of guys or whatever, you get guys who don't like you for whatever reason, and they use it against you. You know, but I think now, if I had been in the street now, who knows? I'd probably be a boss now. The guys today, forget about it. It's like a joke.
Hey, but
you'd be a boss of 3 families at once.
You were with a powerhouse. Nicky's word is gold. You know what I mean? Anything Nicky says is gold. I mean, what was his... Did he have plans for you, or like...
Yeah, but you know what? I think Nicky's plans for me were bad at the end, not good. What happened was me and Nicky had a little bit of a conflict of personality conflict. Listen, I was a wild kid. There's no doubt about it. I was doing everything in the street imaginable. So I was kind of hard to harness for him. I was giving him a lot of headaches as far as that's concerned. He stuck up for me numerous times. He was always there for me on that aspect of it. But in the long run, you know, I was involved in drug activity. I was involved in a lot of other things that were pretty much bringing him a little bit more grief than happiness. And in that aspect, you know, you straighten out some guys who, whatever, Mike Anani was always his go-to guy. And that's okay, because Mike deserved it. Mike was in the street. I was right there with him. He was always doing his thing. So Mike was always, we always knew within our clique that Mike was going to be the first one up. We always knew it, because that's just the way it went. And I was okay with that, because I knew that if they straightened out Mike, I'm going to be all right anyway.
All right,
so if he put me with Lenny or he put me with Mike, either way, I was in a good position. So, and I'm not a jealous guy by nature. So if my friend is going to get straightened out, I'm all for it. You know.
Well, the people that don't know who Lenny DiMaria is the partner of Nicky Carrazzo. They grew up together.
Oh, yeah.
Lenny spent his life in and out of prisons, and was like one of the closest guys. Probably is the closest guy to Nicky. So for people that don't know, let me ask you another question.
Yeah.
Jimmy Calandria, Bath Avenue Boys. I know. Did you have some deal? You know, he's a friend of mine, and me and you actually did the benefit in Cleveland together. About it. Was that last year? 2 years ago we did it.
A few years ago. I think it was like 2.5 years ago, something like that.
Crazy, time goes by fast.
Yeah.
And so you had a relationship with Jimmy prior to us doing that that event, on the street. I wasn't sure. And Anthony Russo, our other friend that Gino's.
Anthony Russo's a nice guy. Me and Anthony, I know Anthony a long time. You know, me and Anthony, you know, believe it or not, we were in the work release program together back in the day, back in the early 90s. And Anthony got mad at me one day because they were bringing him in on a violation. And he wanted me to send some sort of phone number to somebody, which I sent the phone number for him. And then he got mad at me because the cop kept chasing me away from the cage and wouldn't let me speak to him. So he would break my balls. He would tell me, I seen him 2 years later. He goes, hey, he goes, I'm still waiting for you to come over to speak to me. And I started laughing. I said, Anthony, my God, like that mind is like a steel trap. He won't forget this kid.
Hey, you know what's funny, Andrew, Gene? I told you it's a couple months back before this Corona crap. We were all together. We were at a casino, me, Anthony, and there's some things that people don't expect that, Anthony. Number one, for a big guy, man, he's good with his hands. And number two, more important than that, he's got a great, funny personality. We laugh when we're together. He's a funny guy. And people wouldn't expect it because he's a big guy and he's got a very good, dry sense of humor. So, I mean, I actually look forward when we're together. We spend some time together, and him and a bunch of guys went away. Guys that you know, they just went on vacation.
When I was upstate. I had just came out of downstate. I went to Coxsackie.
Okay.
I was up in a place called Coxsackie. So when I hit Coxsackie, Anthony Russo and Teddy Persico just got transferred. They were both there. They had some sort of beef in the yard, and they both got transferred. But there was a few other kids there. There was Joey Urgitano, Joey Cupcake from Harlem. There was a kid named Philly from Bensonhurst, nice kid. And so
tell people who Teddy is, so the people that don't know.
Teddy Persico was a captain in the Colombo crime family. I know Teddy since we're kids. Right. You know, I did a lot of things over the years, you know, with Teddy and his friends. I was good friends with Teddy's brother Danny, who passed away, God rest his soul. And I knew the family very well. I always had a good rapport with the Persicos. We always got along well. So that's
my brother was away with me and McKean, Teddy Persico.
Yeah.
So I think that's his uncle, right? That's not the son of Teddy. I'm not myself.
Junior was Teddy's uncle.
Yeah, right. That's right, though. Right.
Yeah.
He was actually, Teddy was, you know, he's a nice old man. All he did was mind his business, walk the yard. Nice guy. He was in McKean with us. He minded his own business. I was with him
in Otisville. I was with the father in Otisville. He was on 11 South and I was on 11 North when we were both in MCC. But then I didn't meet up to him until we both went to Otisville. And then I got to.
How much time you did, Andrew? How many bids you did?
Let's see. I did 2 bids. I did a state bid. I did a federal bid. I did 5 years with the state, and I did 4. I got out there for 4 years with the feds.
You made your board in that 5 to 15.
I made work release.
Nowadays, you would have CR'd. There's no such thing as that no more.
Well, you know what? When I got violated back in '97, they violated me. I was on the run at the time. They violated me. They gave me the max anyway. They gave me 8 years on the violation.
Pataki probably just changed it. All violence must CR. Because remember, before that, violence was getting work release, making boards. Now, any violence, I had a split bid on violence. You don't make no board.
Yeah.
No.
So I got lucky because I didn't even expect to get the work release program. I applied the first time. They shot me down.
Right.
And then what happened was one day I'm walking through the yard. They called my name on the loudspeaker and told me to go to the front there. I went to the front. And then they told me that I was going home. I was going to Edgecombe. So I went to Edgecombe on 163rd in Amsterdam. That's where I was. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I never thought they were going to give it to me.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Violence.
Violence. They put that against you, you know, when you had the violence on your record at all, you know.
Absolutely.
But, yes.
So the Bath Avenue Boys, when did you have any involvement on the street with them or not?
I never did any business with the Bath Avenue crew. But, you know, we always knew the Bath Avenue crew existed. There was a lot of guys from Bath Avenue. I mean, when I was younger, we did a lot of business with Frank Smith, Teddy Persico, Sally Fusco, those guys. The Bath Avenue guys, not so much. Although I knew Spiro had, everybody knew Spiro had a club on Bath Avenue and stuff like that. Everybody knew it.
Well, Jimmy Calandria, he likes Spiro. He used to talk to me a lot about him. I don't know. I didn't know Spiro myself. But,
I didn't know if Jimmy was on record with Spiro or if Jimmy was on record with Manny Madonna or something. I heard conflicting. I didn't know. I
think originally it was with Spiro, and then later on, I know he was close with Manny Madonna or both of them. I mean, listen, Jimmy was a wild kid. I mean, in jail, same thing. We were younger then. When you're younger, things don't affect you.
Younger, it's
jail, laughing, dancing, singing, joking, always joking around. We were in prison, together for some years, actually, about 3-4 years together, and worked out together. We were always together, but we laughed a lot. I mean, I got to tell you,
that's what keeps you sane. When you're away, that's what keeps you sane. See, me, when I was in the state, I was away with the kid Joey Cupcake. I was with the kid Philly.
He's back in, right? Joey Cupcake.
Yeah, I heard he was back in for some sort of, he stabbed somebody or something.
Yep. Yeah, give him another 25.
I gotta be honest with you. Joey he had a huge heart, that kid. He had a heart like a lion, that kid. That kid went back down from nobody.
I don't know if I knew him. Not sure if I knew him.
Oh, let me tell you something. His father was a sweetheart guy.
That restaurant. Didn't he own that restaurant? They own the restaurant in the city, don't they? Doesn't his family own the big restaurant?
Johnny, they lived 2 doors away from Rayo's, is where they used to live.
Oh, okay. All right.
They had the brownstone there for years. And the father was a nice guy, because when I got out back in 94, I used to go and visit the father. I used to go out to dinner with him. We would meet up. And he was always a nice guy to me. He always treated me kindly. We always used to go out, have dinner, relax, whatever. He was a gentleman. Danny Pagano with the Genovese guys was a gentleman, another class guy.
Danny was a nice guy. Everybody, everybody liked Danny. He really was a class act, nice guy.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these guys, you look back in the life and you say, listen, a lot of these guys, if they didn't go into the life, they had abilities to do a lot of things legitimately, in a real world, if they weren't involved in the street. And, and I always go back to the same thing, because people always, people are interested in these stories, but at the same time, I'm never going to change the message we're talking about.
Sure, and the message has got to stay the same, because you know as well as I know that life is a dead end. It's a dead end. They ain't nowhere to go with that life.
Well, somebody just said that, Gene. I think you were just, there's no happy endings for anybody. No. I mean, I don't care who it is. I don't know too many happy endings.
You show me one guy who gets to keep all his money, his family is happy, nothing happens, never goes to prison. I think the only guy that I could think of off the top of my head is that Tony Accardo back in the day, never went to jail and died of old age. That's like a significant percentage of all the guys.
You got to understand something, Andrew. Nowadays, like the era you came up in, I was running around like you were for my time. I was bugging out, but there's nobody really like that. When you were running around, you probably had 300 guys like you. You know what I mean?
There was a lot of capable guys back in the day like that. In the 80s.
Era.
As I do, there was a lot of serious guys running around.
All right, this era there is none, so you don't have guys really facing that much time. You know what I mean? It's different now. You don't have bodies dropping, people getting shot. It's a whole era, man.
I think, Gene, that's why all of us, we happen to be friends with each other, but there's guys that weren't great friends with us, or we weren't, but we all respected each other, what I'm going to get at. Because you watch the way you talk to people, because in our era, right, Andrew, everybody's dropping bodies. No one knows exactly who's doing all the shooting, but there's guys dropping everywhere every day.
That's why you guys say shit, saying whatever they want, because they know there's no more repercussions.
Right.
So they can walk around and they could be, Mighty Joe Young on the internet saying whatever they want, because they know that there's never going to be any sort of penalty for what they say. But years ago, they would never come out of their faces like that, because they would be worried to be walking home at night.
Guys like us, whatever, back then, they would have to move on us. You know what I'm saying? Like in the 80s, 70s, 80s, we walking around, it'd be a different thing than now walking around. You know what I'm saying? Right now, you can walk around and they might throw a grain of rice at you. That's about it. You know what I'm saying? No one's doing nothing. You know what I mean? It's a whole
different money. Guys are involved now. It's probably just about all the money. The guys
owns in sports. Owns in sports. That's it.
Yeah. Well, the sports they can get away with.
They don't really comprehend. If you punch somebody in the face in a week, 2, or within a year, you're going to get shot in the head. If you're not going to take it all the way, you just don't do nothing, because you're going to get what in our day anyway, what was coming to you.
But like
Now,
Johnny,
it's
can I say
different.
this to you, Johnny? Just the extent, like guys like us, if you're not gonna, I'm not promoting this, but if you're not gonna actually kill somebody or go get them the right way, if you're gonna leave that person alive, what's the point of even saying anything? Because if you're gonna shoot me in my leg or my arm, my hand, and knowing that you're capable of violence and you're a mean, vicious guy, all you're doing is making a pit bull mad. So all you're doing is really putting yourself out there to get yourself hurt. You're not, you know, it's like it makes no sense. You know what I mean? So
I think over the years, John, what happened is that you got a lot of guys who became, they got straightened out or whatever. They got put in positions that they didn't really earn, and there was a lot more capable guys. So when it comes time for them to do the work, whatever, they lean away from it because they weren't cut out for that to begin with. The bosses just kept them close because they were making huge money, and they figured, okay, if I go to jail, I'm going to put him in my position. This way I can keep my family eating. And that was the mindset of the bosses back in the day. You were talking about how guys got straightened out, for nothing. Listen, I know a guys with,
years back then.
Yeah, but you had to earn it back then. But there was also guys who their fathers were bosses or whatever, captains.
Different, right?
They got brought into the life, and they never cracked an egg. They never busted a grape. They never did nothing. But their bloodline, and that's what we can organize crime to begin with, because now you got guys who are not cut out for the life in the life.
Well, you know what I don't like, and I've said it over and over. I don't like the guys that egos come before they actually tell their family members and kids the truth about themselves. And I'm going to use Keith Pellegrino, who I spoke about last week. This is a guy that, whatever happens in our life happens. You're not a tough guy. You're not a gangster. You're not a killer. You had a drug issue. You had a wife that you abused and you didn't take care of her. Forget about if you stay with her or not. You abandoned her. But this is a guy that's projecting himself to his own children as if he was a street guy. Now, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just tell the kids the reality of it is, I'm just a guy that was infatuated with mob guys and I held the belt of some tough guys, whether it was me or it was Vito Guzzo or it was somebody. And get rid of that bullshit storytelling ego so your kids don't follow nonsense.
They just can't accept reality. That's why. So they built this persona of who they want people to perceive them to be. Like me, I'm dealing with some guy right now who writes about me on the internet.
I know what you're talking
this guy couldn't shine my shoes on his best day.
Well, you know what the thing is, but the guy that you're talking about, I understand it when it's strangers, so guys in public. But when you put yourself before your children, that's an issue. See, like my kids, two of them aren't gangsters. They don't want to be gangsters. They're tough kids. They're in good shape. They're tough kids. They don't want to be gangsters. I don't want them to be gangsters. They go to work.
Anybody who loves their children as far as you can.
Yeah, and I got one son who was back in jail. So, unfortunately, it kills me that my son's spending his life in jails like I did. And then my other two kids, I want the furthest thing away from this life. So I don't understand the fathers or any of them that try to push their kids. They could be tough kids as athletes. They could be tough kids with nice kids. They could be, but stay away from this life. When you're bullshitting your own kid because your ego, I just don't get that part.
No, I don't get that either.
I just don't get the reality of that.
If you're a city worker and you're a good kid and all this stuff, stay a city worker. Stay out the street. That's not for you. You know what I mean? That's just like.
Retirement is a lot better, Gene. The retirement's a lot better than staying in the city.
Well, because the reality, the truth is, they can have a good life, whoever it is. What are you looking for problems for whoever, whatever kid, man, child? It's the same thing I've said about my own life. I wish it went a different direction, but it didn't. And for the kids, if we have the ability to try to change some kids' lives so they do the right thing, I mean, I think it's kind of an obligation for that. Because at the end of the day, there was a tape a couple of weeks ago I talked about two young kids. They must have been gang member kids. And one kid was walking out of his apartment. Another kid snuck on and shot him in the head, obviously killed him. And it's like killing yourself. And
you see, that's the whole idea, John, like, experiences that we've been through. It isn't like, you're not going to change everybody's lives by doing what we do.
No, we didn't want to change either.
You change one, you're good. You get one kid who knows that you were for real, that you did X, Y, and Z, and knows that you're talking from true experience, and you could put that kid on the straight and narrow or somehow change that kid's life, even a little bit in the right direction is a good thing. because, you know, people out there, a lot of people talk from no experience, or people like this guy you were talking about a few minutes ago, who's, you know, trying to build himself as X, Y, and Z when he never did a thing in his life. Right. And what kind of accreditation does he have to go around and say these things when in fact he's done nothing? Nothing.
Yeah. Hey, Andrew, can I ask you something? Did you have any dealings with John Jr.?
John Jr., the only thing that I had with John Jr. was I met him at some sort of event, or I don't know if it was an engagement party or a wedding or something like that. I did testify at the trial. Remember something. John lived a very insulated life in that life. So he had his choice friends who, like John, guys that his father put around him to protect him and to make sure that whatever. But guys like me, I was in the street doing dirt. I was never going to be seeing him in the trenches. I would never see him as far as that's concerned. I did know that he used to come to Nicky all the time to ask Nicky for advice. You know, he was always asking Nicky for this or that. That's when they started, you know, back in the late 90s when they had the panel. That I think it was Nicky, it was Jackie Nose, it was John Jr. on the panel. They were always asking Nicky for help on everything. I mean, Nicky was very knowledgeable. Well, Nicky paid for that life. I mean, Nicky was straight up. I mean, you know, a lot of guys out here that make fun of his size or this or that, but Nicky was a true tough guy. I mean, there ain't no doubt about it. And he walked.
Nicky was a gangster.
Lenny, on the other hand, was a great guy. Lenny was nice to be around. He was a gregarious guy. You could have a lot of fun with Lenny. He was more down to earth of the two. You could joke around with Lenny. Nicky, you had to watch joking around with him. Joke around with him when Nicky was in a mood. Other than that, Lenny's
nephew, Anthony Tabita, he used to stay with the Giannini guys.
I knew Anthony very good.
Yeah, well, he was one of the guys who was trying to set me up to kill me. You know, he was plotting to he was gambling with my office. He was trying to lose, and he wasn't going to pay. So I go see him, and this way they can try to ambush me. But it didn't work. I laughed. Now, I mean, I know he got away from the life, and again, it's just part of the life.
I like Anthony. I know he had a really hard case.
I know guys that were friendly with him. It's part of life.
You know, the little bit of time that I spent with Anthony, I had a lot of laughs with the kid. The kid was, you know, for whatever it was, we were locked down, and I got to laugh with him at least.
He put some work in. He wasn't no innocent.
He put some work in.
Yeah, he put work in. And
the funniest story, it's funny as hell. I think they were going to some sort of court proceeding about location of where certain homicides were committed. And I guess he didn't understand the question. And I guess instead of saying where the location of the homicides were, he made something that was like, to me, it was like funny. He was like, oh, I shot that guy in the head. Like thinking it was a location thing, you know, or whatever the case may be. It was way back in the day, or whatever it was.
Right.
I don't know the cases too well, but I laughed. I couldn't stop laughing how he thought it was one thing, but it was another.
Well, I brought up his name because guys say to me, well, you know, when you're talking about this guy or that guy, like I just keep Pellegrino. Whether I agree with the life or disagree with the life, you got to keep it real with people that, you know, the guys that were getting busy and doing things, you got to say, hey, when they were in the life and they were getting down, he was one of them. I mean, so, you know, even though he's trying to kill me, I can't say the guy was full of shit because he wasn't. You know,
respect your enemy. I mean, it happens. You know, you get a guy, he's capable. You got to respect what he could do to you. It happens.
Hey, Andrew, you know, it's funny because, like, when you were coming up, robbing was okay, right? Nobody thought that was wrong, right? So, it's just so funny how the Mafia changed because, like, now that I was doing all the bad stuff, the robbery stuff, they'll call me a thug, a lowlife, all this stuff. I'm robbing bad guys. Andrew, I'm robbing other bad guys.
Well, that's the whole idea.
Yeah, and they're saying that, you're going to their houses. I'm going to a gangster's house or a drug dealer. I'm tying them up and I'm robbing them. What's the problem? What's the problem?
Well, the whole idea is that it's just the act that they're against. But
right.
The bottom line is that would they rather that person sell those drugs to their kids and have their kids overdose or something like? It's a double-edged sword. You can't win for losing.
I was going to tell you that. I had a no wins. It was like this. This is God's honest truth. If I didn't cooperate, everybody wanted me to die in jail. That's what they wanted. They wanted me off the street. People complain about me. And if I didn't cooperate, I was getting life in jail. So they were getting it both ways for me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I had no wins. They were calling up cops on me, everything.
For the things that we've done, when we were in the street and then afterwards, we're not going to get any medals for, and you don't want any medals for those things.
Right.
But you have to understand something, that no matter what it is, you could turn around and you could do so much good for the community from here on in and do some stuff. And they're still not even going to recognize that. They're never going to allow you to ever be that person. They're always going to rub the things that you've done, whether it be cooperating, whether it be doing these things before you cooperated. And that's what these people like, to live in the negative. I stay away from those people as much as I can.